Hey, my name's Jonathan, and I'm a veteran.
Hi, my name is Daryl, and I'm a veteran.
My name is Chad, and I'm a veteran.
Hey, I'm Travis. I'm an Air Force veteran.
Hi, my name's Ashley, and I'm a veteran.
Well, hello, everybody, and happy Sunday. Hopefully, everybody had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know I did. And we're gearing up, getting ready for that Christmas day. So, a lot's going on. My fellow friend, podcaster, and he's a veteran. He has a podcast and a nonprofit. The nonprofit is called Minutes Wisely. And this Christmas, he is raising funds to support the family of a veteran who tragically took his own life. This holiday season is meant to be a time of joy and togetherness. It can also be especially difficult for families coping with the loss of a loved one, especially under such painful circumstances. So they want to step in and bring some comfort to this veteran's family during this challenging time. And their goal is to provide gifts for the children, a holiday meal, and the support they need to experience some of the magic of Christmas despite the heartbreak that they're going through. So here's how you can make a difference. You can donate, and I'm going to put the link up for you guys as well. Every contribution is going to go directly toward ensuring the family can have a Christmas filled with love and care. No donation, of course, is too small. Share. You can help spread the word about the campaign to your friends, family, and social networks. And you can volunteer. You can reach out to Minutes Wisely if you'd like to assist in organizing or delivering the gifts and holiday essentials. Their mission over at Minutes Wisely is to support veteran families, especially those impacted by the toll of mental health struggles and loss. So together, we can give this family some peace and hope during what an incredibly painful time can be. So you can contact Minutes Wisely directly for more information on how to contribute or get involved. And with your help, we can remind this family that they are not alone this holiday season. And that contact is Richard at minuteswisely.com. Again, Richard at minuteswisely.com. So thank you all. Appreciate you all for being here today. And they're looking for $2,500. That is their goal. And I'm going to put that information out across the banners here. And let's see. So there is the link. You can type that in directly to your search, and that exactly the way it is there. And it will take you directly to that specific donate page. And again, this givebutter.com, it's new to me, but I did a little bit of looking up, and it is specific for nonprofits. So pretty excited about that as well. Hopefully, like I said, everybody is doing well. We're getting ready for family and friends for Christmas, but we still have veterans that are out there that need some help, families of veterans. So make sure you reach out, check on everybody. And speaking of veterans, I have a wonderful guest waiting backstage. So if you could all please help me welcome Deric Duncan.
Hi
Hello,
there.
hello.
Hello, how are you?
Good. How's it going?
Very good. Getting everything in that festive spirit.
Nice. Very nice. And do you guys generally have a lot of family come over?
Um, Not really. We do a lot with our community. Right now is kind of our busy season of helping and taking care of families who are less fortunate or having struggles. So we're pretty busy at this time of year.
And yes, Christmas being a lot of, the commercial side of things, right? For a lot of people. But it means so much more to those families who don't have what they need, the basics.
And that's what we've seen over the last couple of years. We've gone from having 10, 15 families really needing help in this area to last year we brought in 40,000 toys and
Oh,
about
wow.
980 pounds of food. And even that wasn't enough to cover all those that were seeking.
Oh my gosh.
And we check. We have a system of checking verifiable needs, so it's not going to places that it isn't doing the most effective it can be. But especially right now, there's with inflation and things like that, it's been really trying for a lot of people. And people,
It has.
we keep hearing stories of veterans who got out, or people that are in currently, who 5, 6 years ago were doing great and now are just struggling to make it through the day and through the week.
Yeah. I'm thinking positive thoughts that, soon we'll be able to kind of crawl out of that
Yeah.
inflation and, start seeing some light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. So I'm excited about that. We'll see how it goes. So let's talk a little bit about you and tell me a little bit about Derek's childhood.
I grew up in a very, very small Indiana town. Um, I had a grandfather who was a huge influence in my life, who served in the Air Force during Vietnam,
Oh,
and
wow. Okay.
uh, I I was around to see the. I was in industrial maintenance, and I saw the collapse in 2008. Um, and like so many people, I was affected. Businesses were laying off. And I was really curious. Okay, I don't know what I'm going to do or how I'm going to go forward from here. I had 2 or 3 factories I worked at shut down.
And how old
Um,
were you back then?
so I would have been r- right around 19, 18, 19 when this all started. And so that was kind of a really impactful thing in my young experiences.
You have
Also
little
having,
munchkins running around?
I do, I do, I just shut, had my wife shut the door so that way they don't come back down in here.
That's all right.
But
So
my grand, yeah,
were
good.
growing up, were you an only child? Did you have family or, siblings?
Oh, yeah, I've got several siblings. I have one full blood brother. I have several step siblings, um, and one of my step siblings actually served in the Navy as well.
Okay.
Um, and so that kind of was growing up in a very, very small community where the average age was 80 to 85 years old,
Wow.
was kind of a big thing. It was like having a bunch of grandparents all around your town. So no matter what you did, you were being seen by one of them.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. So, okay. And then would you say you were a studious child? Did you like school or no?
Uh, I was not a very studious child. I didn't recognize the importance of a lot of what I learned, except for history and geography, social studies. I really liked that. But I couldn't get into math. And in fact, I didn't get math until after I graduated and started working in factories and having to use those equations and use that stuff
Right?
later on in
You're like,
life.
"I'll never use this stuff." Oh,
That's
and then
exactly
it's like,
right.
"Oh, wait, I need that."
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, okay. What was it that took you into the military, specifically the branch that you chose? Yeah, I know you said you had grandfather that had been in Vietnam.
Yeah. So when I was looking at joining, I went in and I kind of listened to the sales pitch because they all have their own sales pitch.
They do?
Um, and to me, the Navy really struck a chord because this was Iraq and Afghanistan were both going on at this time. And I went in, I talked to the Army, and the Army was talking about, oh, we have these bonuses. And that's all they wanted to talk about. The Marine Corps kind of did the same thing. Um, the Air Force, just so happened the recruiter gave a pitch that I didn't like, where he had said, "Look, it's not really about being in the military. This is setting you up as a profession. The Air Force is considered now business professionals." And the Navy recruiter, I don't know if he saw my interest in it or what, but he said, "Look, you can join any branch you want to, but there's only one branch that you'll get on a boat, and next thing you know, you'll be in 6 months, you'll hit 5 different countries, and you'll get to see things that you'll never have seen, or anyone you know has probably never seen." And that was really strong, and it was a way of serving my country, providing some financial stability, and also going out and seeing the world.
What time did you tell your parents? I mean, like before you signed that you were thinking of joining, after you signed?
My grandfather was the only one that knew until about 5 days before I shipped to boot camp.
Oh.
Um, I when I joined, I had asked, "What's the quickest thing I can do to just get out there, just go ahead and go get sent to boot camp?" Because I didn't want that time of sitting there lingering and, okay, am I doing the right thing? And so they gave me 30 days from the day I signed my contract to shipping off. And so didn't give me a whole lot of time to think about it. And when I was about 5 days out, I told my parents, "Hey, I'm going to go to boot camp here in the near future." I don't even think I told them when I was going to go, and because I was living on my own at the time, and I didn't
Okay.
want to make a big deal about it. So my time came, and I think I told both of them once I was already at the airport in Chicago to go to Great Lakes. "Hey, I made it to Great Lakes. I'll be in boot camp starting tomorrow."
Oh my gosh, what did your mom say?
My mom was a little surprised.
Have you
Uh,
lost your ever loving mind?
um, my mom remarried to a Air Force veteran, so she understood the benefits. Her dad was the one that was in Vietnam. She was very concerned of, have you thought this through? But at the same time, she knew I'm kind of bullheaded and I was going to do what I was going to do.
Well,
Uh,
and the fact that you had 30 days at least, to where to think about it, right? I mean,
yeah.
you weighed the pros and cons and, I'm sure you explained all of that to her, right?
Oh yeah, we went through and talked about it and why I decided to join the Navy versus any other branch, and kind of going back to when I was in that small town in Indiana. I worked on farms a lot. There was a gentleman there. His name was Bud. He was a World War II Navy veteran, and I know that his conversations he had with a 12, 13, 14-year old didn't think they were ever getting through, but he would tell me these amazing stories of being out in the Pacific during World War II and what he experienced and what he saw. And when I went to sign up and they were talking about seeing the world, it just flashed back in my mind to that those stories with Bud of, this is what he did and he signed up for. Man, I think I really want to be a part of that.
Wow. That's, an amazing thing to think when you're that young, right? You know, the dangers included and, but the patriotism and being proud of, to fight for your country and stuff I get, right?
Oh yeah.
So, okay. What was your MOS? What'd you sign
I
up for?
I was a Navy Master at Arms, which is security forces or military police, depending on your branch.
Okay.
Uh, that was really being looked at for the Navy because at that time, prior to then, you had to become an E5, or you had to be an E5 to transfer over into that rate. And for the first time ever, the Navy was standing up security forces, and so they were taking E1s, E2s, and E3s. And so it was
Wow.
going to be fun to be part of one of those original classes going into that.
Yeah. Especially, I mean, yeah, considering you would have had to have waited a while to get to that point.
Yeah.
So that was quite the break. Tell me a little bit about what it was for you when you first stepped out of off the bus or whatever transport you got to your recruit station and boot camp. Like, what was your first initial thought?
Um, so the very first thing is uh, for at least the Navy, when you go to join uh, the Navy, you fly into Chicago O'Hare Airport. They send you to the USO, and then you make this trek down to this unused area of the airport. That's just where you get on the bus to go to Great Lakes. And I remember I started to walk down that hallway, and from the very, very far back of the room, this guy screams, "Hey, recruit, get up here and get in line!" And I was with three other people I'd flown in with, um, who were all going to Navy boot camp. And as soon as we heard that, one of the guys went, "I think I'm changing my mind. I'm going to run." And I was like, oh, why don't we step outside? We all smoked. Why don't we step outside and smoke and talk about this? And we got him calmed down, and then the other one started going, I don't think I can do it. I've now changed my. So we stood out there for quite a while before we went back down. Um, and I'm very grateful that we actually did step out, because I got some of the people I went to boot camp with have become lifelong friends of mine. I would have never met them had we not had that waiting period before we went and
Right.
hopped on the buses.
And when you get on the bus, you get to your destination.
Mhm.
And what was it like?
So,
Drill instructor gets on the bus and starts yelling what?
uh, to be honest, I don't remember drill instructor getting on yelling. Everybody off the bus get lined up, and it
Nice.
almost seemed like a just like going through a bureaucratic portion, because you start walking and they start taking you through all this stuff, and it wasn't until you're there, and that first major shock is they have everyone split off between male and female, and then strip naked in the room, and then you get your clothes and everything else, and that's when the you start hearing the yelling and everything else, and it's a very chaotic time. And I'm sure every boot camp's this way, but for Navy boot camp, by the time you get processed in, you don't have a we call them berthing. You don't have a berthing to sleep in where it's your barracks room. So you sit down in the hallway and hold on to your sea bag and fall asleep on your sea bag for a few minutes of start that sleep deprivation to get you used to that new schedule.
Yeah, for sure. Did you get to call home and say you made it?
Uh, we did that from O'Hare, from the O'Hare airport. That was one of the big things I absolutely loved about the Navy was when you got there, it didn't matter. You immediately were told, get over there to the phone station and call your family. Let them know that you've arrived.
Did you have a
Um,
script?
no, you could say whatever you wanted. They they gave you a free phone card, and you could stay and use the entire phone card if you wanted to. You could have stayed longer if you wanted to pay for more time. It was
Wow.
let your family know you're there and you're safe and that you've arrived, because I mean it's a huge adventure for any family when somebody joins, especially going into the Navy, when you may go out to sea and be out to sea for 6 months and go a month, 2 months, 3 months without being able to have contact. Um, so it's such a huge thing to make that phone call, and we made that step, and then getting your family to know, look, I'm going to be taken care of. I'm here. It may not be fun, but I'm covered by the Navy now.
You're gonna do it.
Yeah.
So going back a little bit to your high school days, were you in sports at all?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cross country and wrestling and uh, anything that I could do, I was trying to do. If my school was so small, my graduating class was 75 people. So you may not want to do a sport, but you may be one or two people short of that team being able to form to actually even compete.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so you would have buddies that be like, look, one of them was a golf team. We were trying to form a golf team, and they finally came through and said, hey, look, we're four people short of being a golf team. And so they would find
Wow.
guys that have never played golf in their life, didn't have golf clubs, had no clue what they were doing, going out there and on 9 holes, 100 strokes, just so that way a team could form and the guys could compete and play. And so it was a very big sense of community of, I'm not doing something just for myself. I'm doing it because my friends need me, or the school needs me to help do this.
Right, right, for sure. Um, so all right. And tell me what it was like as far as basic or basic training goes or boot camp. I mean, for you, for Derek, what was it like in boot camp?
When you go into boot camp, it you imagine how it's going to be physically tough, and there is part of that. You're doing a lot of physical exertion. I wasn't fully understanding how mentally tough it'd be, and that was one of the main thing they were looking for. Is they were looking for people who were mentally tough enough to be in the military. And I saw people dropping out left and right, and it was very easy for people to drop out. They could just quit doing what they're supposed to and get discharged out of boot camp. And for me, I was like, well, it seems like this is too easy. If this gets tough, you can just leave. And then I started realizing while I was in there that they're just trying to sort out who can actually do this.
Right.
Because if they send somebody over that can't do it, that's going to have disastrous impact. But at the time, I remember thinking, man, this is really hard. And it wasn't very long after getting out of boot camp and being in the fleet, as we say in the Navy, that I was like, if I could go back and do that as my job, I would do that every day.
Right, for
But
sure.
you start building that camaraderie that lasts for years.
Yeah. Hey, I'm going to ask a question. This is off topic. Do you
Yeah.
have something that you can put your phone on rested up against?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to put you backstage here for just a second while you
Oh,
get
okay.
that. Okay. So while we wait for that, just want to make sure that, he's good and steady for everybody, which it looks like he is just about. So um, again, I'm going to put out there for you guys while we're waiting. So this is the link that you can go and donate to Minutes Wisely for the veteran family that has lost their loved one. So all right. It looks like Derek, give me a thumbs up if you're ready. Excellent. Perfect. There you are. Okay. Can you hear me okay?
I can hear you fine. Can you hear me?
Excellent. I can. Let me see if I can turn the volume up on you just a second here. I don't know that I can. No,
I can
that's okay.
get a little closer to the microphone.
There we go. Excellent. Okay. So we were talking about you and basic training or boot camp. I guess Navy is boot camp, right? It's similar to the Marine Corps as far as what the name of it is.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
very similar to the Marine Corps.
Yeah. And what was your favorite part about boot camp?
I think my favorite part about boot camp is, and it's weird as a looking back on it, there was uh, a Catholic chaplain that had a huge impact on me. Um,
During
'Cause
boot camp?
during boot camp, um,
Wow.
they would have people come up and clean the chapel for Sunday service so people would go, and it'd be on Saturday nights. Hey, we're going to go yank some people from each division. We're going to march over to the chapel and clean. And they always ask who wanted to volunteer to go. And I was like, it seems like Saturday night, a lot of my people are going to get in trouble. We're going to do push ups for quite a while. And it can't be that bad at the chapel. So I remember volunteering the first time, and this chaplain lined us all up, and he was in his military uniform, and uh, he's like, "We're going to march to the chapel, and you're going to march using my cadence." And okay, we're used to marching; that's what we're familiar with. And he would do like the Star Wars Imperial Stormtrooper as the cadence, and it was oh yeah, it was so funny. But you would get over there, and there was humor between people between recruits, but he would go through and make little jokes while you're cleaning. And then I remember this he had to be a '05, walking around to a bunch of E1s and E2s, and hey, are you doing okay? What's going on? Are you making it through all right? Are you understanding what's happening and why boot camp is the way it is? And watching this high ranking officer as a fresh recruit who's nothing, that had such caring compassion for people, it really struck a chord with me of he really does care what's happening to us. And it's not, he cares because it's his job, because we saw other chaplains that were there, other officer chaplains that were there, that when they would see us to come in and clean, they would scoot to their offices and hide. And I remember he would walk around, and he always had like a bag of mints, and he would drop some mints on the floor as he was walking past. He wasn't going to give us candy, but as we cleaned, all of a sudden there's this pile of mints on the floor or whatever. It was always so weird because he wasn't breaking the rules. He wasn't giving us candy. He wasn't doing anything like that. But oh well, I just spilled this, so can you guys clean it up and get rid of these or throw them in the trash or whatever you're going to do with them? And why that stuck with me so much is I end up after boot camp, my follow-on school was full, so I had to stay up in Great Lakes for an extra couple weeks. And during that time, he came over and would get those of us who'd completed boot camp to go over and help him do whatever needed to be done at the chapel. And he sat down, he went and got us all and brought us into the chapel one day and said, "Go ahead and sit down. You've all graduated boot camp. I want to talk to you." And he had made the comment, "The reason I checked on you guys when you'd come in clean is because for the rank that's on my shoulder, the entire purpose that's there is to protect everyone of lesser rank than that." And he had just such a of how he viewed things and how he would explain it to us and he charged us all with, remember, as you add more to your own collar device or your own rank, that's more people that you now have to take care of and you have to protect. They may
Right.
not be yours, they may not be your subordinates, but they are fellow people and they might look up to you, so protect them.
Wow.
And that had even today has an impact on me. I'm not in the military, I don't have rank anymore, but looking after people that there's a reason that if you're looked up to, you're looked up to for a reason, and it's your job to protect those people that look up to you.
Right. Right. And okay, so I could see where that would be the best part for you for basic training or boot camp. What about the worst part for you?
Oh my lord! So it's kind of funny. Um, so the Navy does things a little differently. You have watches, so you would have your regular job in the Navy, but you'll have an additional watch.
Like a
And it may
fire
be
watch?
like fire watch or quarter deck watch or um and that's just how it is. You always have OD, you always have these other watches that you have to do on top of your job. So in boot camp you have the same thing. You have watches where two people are up in the middle of the night, so it cuts into your sleep a little bit and you've got to get up and iron things like that in the middle of the night. Well, when you can sleep is very important. I did not realize that there's a large group of people that a small amount of stress or a large amount of stress put on them will cause them to uh, talk in their sleep. And there was a lot of talking in the sleep where this gentleman from Boston, I remember yelling as loud as he could in his sleep, "I have clams for sale here." And waking up like, "Oh, I don't know what's going on. Are we getting yelled at?" And then realizing you are talking in your sleep to the point I can't sleep. And that part kind of was something that always stuck in my mind of, man, that really stinks. Like you'd be laying there sleeping and all of a sudden somebody would just shout something out in their sleep or,
And it startles you awake.
oh yeah. Or you'd have the guy that we had a very nice guy, a very deep accent, Southern accent. He would yell, "Yes, petty officer," and stand up and hit his head on his rack.
Oh, no.
And it was like clockwork. It would happen every hour.
Oh, that poor man.
he, I still, or up until a few years ago, I'd still talk to him, and I'd always make fun of him for that still of, "Do
I
you do
bet
that
he'd wake
now?"
up and wonder why his head hurt.
Oh yeah, I guarantee he wondered why his head hurt, and everyone else would wake up in the compartment wondering why they're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and we got to be up at 5.
Oh, that's funny. So, all right, in the Navy, I can tell you, of course, Marines, Army, they're riflemen first, right?
Yeah.
What is it like in the Navy?
Um, in the Navy, everyone is a firefighter. It's one of the weirdest things about the Navy that
As a
you don't
firefighter.
hear.
Okay.
Because you think when you're out in a ship in the middle of the ocean, a fire breaks out.
Hmm.
There are people whose jobs are damage controlmen, who are 90% of the people in charge of fighting the ship. They know how to keep the ship afloat and keep it from taking on damage. But everyone has to help. So throughout Navy boot camp, you learn how to fight fires. You put on an SCBA. You learn how to use a fire hose. You learn and everyone learns that. And there are certain skills that you learn that everyone has to know, because one of the weird fundamental things about the Navy is, like, as you go out to a ship, there's the enlisted aviation warfare device. There's the enlisted surface warfare device, or submarines, the dolphins, or those devices show that I know how to do a little bit of everyone's job. So if I'm called on, I can do it. And so that's part of the Navy's thing of everyone's a firefighter. Everyone's fighting the ship. It doesn't matter if your job is you do paperwork most of the time, or if you do security most of the time. If something happens, an emergency to the ship, you have to be able to respond, and they can't have people that don't know how to.
And it's such a large ship in general. So
Oh,
to get from, one area to the other, it takes too much time, I would
oh
presume.
yeah. Oh, good Lord. That was it's amazing. It's mind-boggling once you're on a ship how big a ship actually is.
Excuse me. And all right, so you go ahead, you get into all of that training, and then you graduate. Where's your PDS?
Where's our PDS? Like our after school.
Yeah.
So for the Navy, we call them A schools.
Okay.
Um, my A school was in San Antonio, Texas. There's Navy A schools throughout the United States, everywhere. I was lucky enough to follow on school to San Antonio, Texas, to Lackland Air Force Base,
Oh, okay.
and learn how to be a Navy Master at Arms.
And for those who don't know, Navy Master at Arms is what?
Navy Master at Arms is Navy Police, um, security forces, or however you
Right.
want to call it in your other branches.
Perfect. All right. So when you get there, how different is that for you?
Getting there and getting into A school, there's a certain level of freedom immediately, because now instead of having 60 of your best friends in the same berthing together, it's you and one roommate share a room, and you have a little bit more privacy. And um, I had one of my best friends, his name was Stimpowski. Stimpowski and I got to be roommates and hang out and talk, and it was just immediately feeling like, oh, we're now in the fleet, which is still not true. You're still in training. You're still
Right.
doing,
Until you
but
get picked up.
oh yeah, and so it was such a unique feeling of now not every minute of your day is planned and calculated by somebody else. You've got to be back responsible for your own time again.
How long was your training
8
at A
weeks.
school? 8 weeks. And okay. And then where did you go from there?
I went to NSA Bahrain, um, Naval Support Activity Bahrain, which is a island next to Saudi Arabia.
Hmm.
Um, absolutely wonderful place to go. I really enjoyed uh, being in Bahrain, and just seeing that different culture was the first time leaving that far from what I've known, and getting to see cultures that are different than ours, but at the same time seeing some similarities. I can remember. I don't know where this restaurant is in the United States. I know there's a restaurant called Johnny Rockets.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Was that in Vegas?
It might be. One of the guys I was there with saw a Johnny Rockets in Bahrain, was like, we have to go. I love Johnny Rockets. So we went, and I don't know what he ordered, but he ordered something with bacon on it. And he's like, this bacon is really weird. And they're like, oh, it's beef bacon. We don't do pork bacon because it's a predominantly Muslim country. And so it's like, it's a little bit like where you're from, but it's also a little different. And then just learning to get outside, because we had those guys that they went to McDonald's or they ate on base and they didn't go anywhere else. But then you get to meet all those people that are like, hey, have you been to this restaurant, or have you been to this area, or have you gone and done this tour, or have you gone and done this? And kind of learning, hey, I want to break free from my comfort zone. I want to go see something different.
Right. So did you the populace then was pretty welcoming
Oh yeah.
of you guys being there?
There were some that were not. It's like anywhere. I mean, same thing. If you would get stationed in um, different areas, like I know in San Antonio, not everybody was a fan of having the military right there in San Antonio.
Right. Right.
But the majority, as long as you minded your manners and you tried to be a good ambassador of, hey, I'm here as a United States Navy member, you could still have fun. But as long as you kept that in mind, the populace was fairly friendly.
And when you went out in public, were you wearing civvies or were you wearing your
Yeah, we were
yeah.
allowed to wear civvies. There were a few years before there had been some terroristic threats, and then we've had some incidents since that have caused that to not be a thing. But when I was there, we were fortunate enough to be able to wear civilian clothes. They asked everyone to dress modestly because they wanted to be respectful. And like I said, if you dressed modestly and if you had questions on something and you were presenting those questions as legitimate questions of wanting to understand as opposed to ridicule, the populace there would move mountains to accommodate you. And it was
Wow.
really nice. It was a really great experience.
And the scenery, what was that like? I mean, desert, green.
It was desert. They had beautiful buildings they had built. There were a lot of really pretty things to see, but as far as scenery there, it was a flat, sandy, dry place.
So what was your thought when you stepped off the plane and you see all of that?
I stepped off the plane and I think it had to be like April, and it was so ridiculously hot there. And no offense on our sponsor. Our sponsor got a flat tire. He was supposed to come pick us up from the airport.
Oh no.
So we were standing outside for what felt like a small eternity. It probably was only like 45 minutes.
That's still a long time.
Oh yeah, in the Bahraini heat, and we were hating every minute of it. But it was definitely a culture shock. It was because you immediately see architecture that's not familiar. You see arid climate that's not familiar, and people that are talking in a language that's not familiar.
Right.
So there's always that little bit of fear, but there's also, it was just kind of exciting. Hey, look, I'm in this place that no one I know has been to before.
Right. That's exciting to do different things, try different foods, and see different cultures. I think that's amazing. And so from there, where did you go?
My next big station was Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. I absolutely love Guantanamo Bay, Cuba. Very different experience. When I landed there, my sponsor met us at the airport. He was a guy from security. It was me and a couple of guys I knew from Bahrain all went down there together. And get into his car. He has his family with him. We wondered how we were going to get across because there's two sides, leeward and windward. You land on leeward side and you have to go to windward. He said, "Hey, why don't you come down here to the dock? I'll just take you guys across to windward side on my boat." And so
this is the sponsor.
Oh, this is the sponsor, and you're going across.
I'm not sure. I think we might have lost you there. I don't know if you can hear me. Okay, looks like we've lost him here for a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and while we wait for him to come back on, again, if you have the opportunity, go out and take a look at this particular link. This is a givebutter.com is a link specifically for nonprofits. And so we're really excited for that. And there is a veteran who unfortunately took his own life. And so Minutes Wisely is trying to raise money in order to help this family have, as well as, as best as they can, a good Christmas. So that includes food and gifts for the children and the veteran's spouse. So take a look at that, and hopefully they can hit their goal. So it looks like Deric's made it back. So let's pull him back up.
Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. All of a sudden, it just went blank.
It froze. It froze on my end. I could see you. Well, I mean, it just froze in, one picture. So, okay. So you were saying that, let's see, we were talking about Guantanamo Bay. And so your sponsor is taking you across in his boat.
Oh, yeah.
And how did that go?
It was great. We got to see Guantanamo Bay is a small, self-contained city because you can't go out in town in Cuba. So everything has to be right there. So going out and seeing like the McDonald's on base and seeing the exchange and all the different things and getting explained how things work there It was a very different. There were some similarities. There are areas of Cuba that are very tropical looking, where you can go and pick mangoes out of the trees in the park. But there's also huge areas where there's just spans of cactus, and there's some mountains that you see, and there's some very large hills on base, and it's absolutely gorgeous. It's one of my favorite places, I think, in the world.
So you can't go into town. Now that's the military saying that.
Yeah, you can't go in town because between Cuba and the United States, you have the Marines that guard the border, there's a gate. People used to go back and forth. Cubans that worked on base would go back and forth, but since the Castro regime took over, military was not allowed to go back and forth across. In fact, that was a big concern, and part of the reason they would have buoys markers and things like that were if military would take fishing boats out to go and fish around the bay and the harbor, the concern was always keep them away from the Cuban line, because if they go across, there's no status of forces agreement or SOFA agreement with Cuba, so they wouldn't have to turn back over that service member.
Okay.
And one of the big things there is you'd have Cubans that would swim to Guantanamo Bay base to claim asylum.
Okay. All right. And they're trying to alleviate that as best they can.
They're trying to keep them from getting there. And we would, once they crossed in our area, they get picked up and taken to a Cuban migrant facility to get processed to claim asylum, and not necessarily in the United States. Some of them would go to Canada or to Spain or wherever we can negotiate a place for them to go.
Okay. Looks like we've got a little bit of a delay on your side. I hear your voice before I hear or see your lips move.
Sorry about that. I don't know if there's a way I can kick up that speed or not.
I was funny. I was like, okay, I'm reading his lips. So what did you think? I mean, obviously you said it was a pretty nice looking place to be. Did you ever then get to talk to any of the locals at all?
Yeah, there was I think she was 90. Her name was Hildy. She lived on base. Her husband was being taken care of. There's actually was a whole area, I don't know if it still exists, it's been quite a while ago, called the old Cuban home. It was where a bunch of the Cuban workers had retired to and would live out their life. But Hildy worked at this little bitty exchange up near my barracks. And she would talk about as her childhood when Cubans could come across and people could go back and forth across the gate there, and having great relationships, and how she started working there when she was 16 years old. And I think at that time she was 90. So she'd been working there a long time, and got to see lots of different service members come and go. But, and they would talk about what their experience was like. And that was an amazing experience and very valuable.
Nice. Now, I think we might have missed a little bit. So you had said going across, your sponsor took you across to the other side. Was that an issue then by boat taking you across the waters?
No, it's a beautiful bay. And every day ferries go back and forth across it, that from windward to leeward side, taking people's vehicles. And
okay,
leeward just happens to be where the airport is. And windward is where most of the base activities exist.
Okay. I was wondering how that would work, being that they try and keep it separate, right?
It's like a open circle where the ocean has the inlet there, and at the very other far side is the Guantanamo River. And so to traverse across the part that is U.S. controlled, you have to take a boat back and forth between U.S. side to U.S. side. And it's such a weird experience with that, but it's one that's nice to have.
And how long were you there for?
I was there for over 3 years.
Oh, wow.
I was going to be getting out of the military. I didn't want to stay in. I thought I'm going to get out and go to school.
Your contract was at 4 years?
I did a 4-year contract. So I decided at the very last minute to stay. And they wanted me to obla serve to go somewhere else. I was like, no, I'm going to get out. I'm not going to stay. and last minute of my contract, I enlisted. So I stayed there for a lot longer, but I really enjoyed it because the first year and a half as a young service member, you do a lot of things that young service members do, like drink and hang out and party. And then I made a couple really good friends who they always talked about seeing the benefit of anywhere they went, but they didn't see any benefit in Cuba. Well, there's nothing to see here. And that's when I started looking at stuff. And I talked to Hildy and I talked to other people, and I found Victory Hill is where Teddy Roosevelt and the Rough Riders rode up to defeat the Spanish Spanish army.
Wow.
And I got to go up and do that. And then I came back and was telling Hildy about how fun that was to go do. And she said, well, have you went and put your feet on the footprints of Christopher Columbus?
Oh, wow.
No, I haven't done that. And she said, well, you've been to Windward Ferry Landing, where the ferry comes in. And I said, yeah. She was 20 feet to the east of that is the spot where Christopher Columbus planted the flag. And nobody had ever said anything to me about that. And so I went down there. I took a weekend, and I brought probably 20 or 30 people because they were all saying, well, Hildy must not know what she's talking about. Nobody's ever mentioned this.
So nobody knew.
Yeah. And sure enough, there was a little monument where you could place your feet right over where Christopher Columbus's feet were and stand where he stood when he planted the flag.
Oh, wow. That is a heck of a story. And
Yeah.
you enjoying history so much.
Oh, yeah.
Too. I bet that was just quite amazing for you.
It was the only thing I regret is I went and did this stuff, and never once in my mind I said, I should take a picture of this.
And what year was this?
Oh, Lord, this would have been 2012.
Okay. All right. So how long, you said you stayed there for 3 years?
Yes.
Okay. Then what did you do after that?
From there, I went to the USS George Washington.
Okay. And is that the first time you've been on a ship? Like
First
for any
time on a
length of
ship.
time?
So I joined the Navy thinking all sailors went on ships. And
Surprise.
I did my first tour, never been on a ship other than small harbor boats. And I got the opportunity to go on a ship. And I remember there were 2 other guys that were going to go on a ship as well. And they both decided to get out. They didn't want to go. And there were one of the guys that I knew that was going, Stephen Cayeza. He was excited. He's like, I joined the Navy. I wanted to go see a ship. So we were both thrilled to go. But we found out that Master at Arms security for a ship was run by the Marine Corps.
Oh, okay.
That changed. And so what would happen is about 6 or 7 Master at Arms would go to a carrier. And you would be in charge of security. And every department would send you either their new people or the people that aren't qualified to do different work, or people that cause problems for the department, or, oh, this kid isn't happy with his job, so we're going to send him to. And so you would get 200 people who came from other departments. So one day they were in charge of cooking or being a yeoman or working on a flight deck. And the next day they're being told, you're going to go through a class and you're going to learn how to do security. And these Master at Arms are going to be in charge of you. And
not what you thought it was going to be, right?
No, I thought, okay, it'll be several of us Master at Arms. And there were a few, but very few.
200 to what? What was the ratio there?
5,000 people on the ship.
Okay. But how many Master at Arms versus the number of people that you had to train?
5 to 6 Master at Arms.
Compared to 200 people to train?
Yeah.
Ah.
Yeah. It was. And
the odds were not in your favor.
No. And unfortunately, of that 5 or 6, only 2 or 3 were training. The rest of us were running security.
Oh my gosh.
And then you would pull into a foreign port, like pulling into, let's say you're going to pull into Hong Kong. Well, now I need 500 people for security to man the port, to man the boats traveling back and forth and to do security checkpoints and things like that. So you get people brought in from everywhere. And as a master arms, you get slapped with a job called DSO, which is duty security officer. And this is your 24 hours. You run security. Anything happens, they're waking you up. You're responsible for everything. And the next day you're handing it off to somebody else.
Did you get woken up a lot?
Oh, yeah. It was common practice that if you were DSO, you'd even go to your rack. You sat in the office and you would turn the light off and just wait for someone to come in and flip it on. And this is what's going on.
Do you have any funny stories for that? That you can tell? We don't want,
I'll keep it.
Now, granted, this is your platform, so you can tell it however you care to. That is up to you.
So one of the funniest ones was I was DSO in Australia. We went to Brisbane,
Mm-hmm.
and it was not funny at the time. We had a guy go UA. He just decided he was going to leave the ship.
Okay.
And he left his ID card. He left a letter. He left all the stuff. I'm leaving the Navy. I'm going AWOL. And that was a horrible day. I had to notify the CO. I had to notify all these people that this guy had just gone. He walked off the ship and was somewhere in Australia. And that was a very long day of a lot of people having very strenuous conversations with me about how did you let this happen during your duty security officer. And I kind of got teased a little bit. And our next port was the Philippines. And leading up to my day as DSO again, like, oh, don't let too many people go AWOL again.
Right.
And within the first 4 hours of taking over, I get paged, duty security officer. We need you at the, need you to get over to the checkpoint. Oh, okay. What's going on? We have a father here who's very mad. Okay, I'll go over. So I go over to the checkpoint. And it's the father of the kid that went UA. They were from the Philippines or went AWOL. His son had flown back to the Philippines from Australia. And the father brought him back to the ship to turn his son in. So we end up putting him in handcuffs and taking him to the brig. But I was like, of all the odds, our next port was going to be the Philippines, and your dad, on the first day we get there, comes dragging you back to the ship to turn you in.
I'm sure he was afraid,
Oh,
of a lot of pushback from the Navy.
well, his dad was a retired Navy chief, and he's 7.
Yeah.
Was not happy with his son, and his son just for some reason assumed I can go back and live in my dad's house and my dad will take care of me until whatever. And his dad, I guess, kept that facade up right until our ship pulled in. And as soon as we pulled in, he took his son out, and his son said he told me he was taking me to the mall to buy me some new clothes. And next thing we know, we get yanked into there. So it was probably one of the funniest things to ever happen as a duty security officer of the guy goes AWOL on your watch and gets returned on your watch.
Yeah. What did everybody say after that? Like, I mean, now here they were ribbing you about the fact that you lost one, but now you got him back. What are they saying about that?
The story took about 2 hours to get out to some of the other DSOs because they were out in town. They were having a good time, and it slowly spread to them. And then they were making their ways back to the ship of, hey, can you rewind the video from that turnover? Have you filled out your report on it? Like, oh, I'm starting to fill out my report, but play it back. I'm just going to be standing off to the side and watching it. And sure enough, they would laugh and they'd see them getting tugged by his ear all the way back up. So it was a pretty good time.
Oh my gosh. Isn't that's a heck of a story, but obviously they stopped, razzing you about losing him. But I can only imagine how mad that kid was.
Oh.
Absolutely furious.
Yeah.
Makes you wonder about conversations after the fact with his dad.
Oh yeah, I couldn't imagine that Thanksgiving once he got out of the military, what that was probably like.
Right. Okay. And you were on ship for how long?
I was on ship for 3 years.
Another 3 years. Okay. So you went to the Philippines. Where'd you go after that?
Um, on that trip, I don't remember. While on the ship, we were in South Korea and Malaysia and Australia and Guam, uh, Thailand, just hitting all these different ports in Japan, Hong Kong, which is absolutely one of my favorite places to visit.
I was going to ask that question.
Oh, I love Hong Kong.
So that's your favorite out of all those ports that you hit?
No, I think it would be, if of any port I've ever hit, it would be South Korea, going into Busan, South Korea. And
Wow.
the entire reason for it, I mean, there was great food, there was wonderful people, a lot of things that were really cool. But the number one cool thing doesn't get talked about nearly enough is in Busan, South Korea, or not too far from Busan, there is a United Nations cemetery for all those who fought for Korea to help keep Korea free.
Wow.
And the respect they show to each of the nations that participated in keeping them free is amazing. That's also where you encounter a lot of North Korean intelligence. There are people there that are saying, we want U.S. members to go away. We want to go away. And I was reading this pamphlet that I was handed by somebody that was saying U.S. America's military is persecuting us. And this older Korean man came up and took it from my hand. And I was in line to go on this tour. And he pulled me out of the line. And I was like, all right, we're going to go see something, I guess. And he pulled me to his car, and he had his grandson in his car with me. And my battle buddy came with me, and he took us to the cemetery. And they were planning on going that day. They had brought buckets with water and rags, and they would clean the headstones of different military members.
Oh, wow.
There's a memorial called the Thousand Pools of Light, and it's supposed to signify the tears of all the mothers and the wives who lost their husbands or lost their sons or their fathers in Korea. He made sure to walk through and show us, this is France, this is the United States, here's Canada, here's this. And the care he took, and he was bringing his grandson to teach that message that the U.S. didn't have to be in that war. It
Right.
wasn't a war that we had to have. The North Koreans invaded the South Koreans, and we stepped up and kept them free. And he was communicating with us about it and telling us, had it not been for America coming to their aid, there's no way they'd be free, and there was no way they'd have what they had. And watching just the amount of respect that he had for any service member who was coming there, and you kind of lose focus of why America's in so many different countries. And he was sitting there, and he said, I thank America for sending their ships and sending their airmen and sending their soldiers, because that's what guarantees that we remain free, and that my son will have, or my grandson will have the rights and the liberties he has. And so people always think, well, why are we in these foreign countries? Well, I know very clearly why I was in South Korea, because that older gentleman made it very clear that he was so grateful for what the American military provided by giving them and keeping them free.
That that really does put a different perspective for people, right? That we kind of take for granted, of having our servicemen and women in different areas of the world versus home, and why we do. And I appreciate that. I really do. So you weren't concerned, you were talking about how this gentleman grabbed you out of line and put you in his car, and stranger danger did not enter your mind?
I mean, there was a little of that when I first joined the military. I was a lot more that way. But one of the things I knew I could handle myself physically. And I was with a couple other gentlemen who could, well, on that one, I was with one battle buddy. I knew, okay, if we get into a fist fight, it's going to be on, but we'll get out of there. But there's also,
it's just a fist fight.
well, South Korea is a lot safer than getting in cars some other places. There was one car, we were in Hong Kong, that I didn't think we were going to get out of it. And I had instances in the Philippines that I wasn't getting out of people's cars.
Wow.
But just kind of learning to lose yourself in those moments, like going into Hong Kong. And I don't know where anything is. I've never been there. It's my first trip. I grabbed my battle buddy, his first trip. Let's go see something. And you start walking and you don't know where you're going. You just know, hey, we're going to go find something. We're going to go do something that we've never done.
Right.
And experience the culture.
That's amazing. So, okay, you end up. Was there ever a port that you were nervous about going to?
The Philippines.
Really? That was the one.
So we got to the Philippines, and the first day I was with a battle buddy, and the very first day we get in this taxi, and we go maybe 10 blocks, and the guy covers the meter all of a sudden, and when we get stopped, he says $100 American. I'm not giving you $100 American. There's no way it costs that much. I saw we were at 5 blocks ago. But the other thing that made me nervous about the Philippines is there were so many people that I remember it raining pretty severely while we were there. And this lady had small children that she would just send out into traffic to go beg for money. And that was so heart-wrenching and so hard to watch. And just seeing some of that stuff. And you were getting briefed beforehand, hey, some of this is a scam because they know they can pull on your heartstrings and get you to give to these little kids. But I've never been somewhere that I was just so uncomfortable because of every entrance to most stores, you'd have armed guards.
Oh.
And they were used to, there used to be several military bases in the Philippines.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a lot of kind of some scams and things like that. And I was like, I got to the point where I didn't really look forward to going out in the Philippines. They'd be like, hey, I'll take your duty days and I'll take 3 or 4 people's duty days if we'll trade when we go to Korea or Hong Kong and you take my duty day. But that was always one that I was very nervous about. And even anywhere we'd go in the Bahrain or Dubai, or if you go anywhere like that, those weren't even as nerve-wracking to me for some reason as the Philippines were.
Interesting. And okay, I have to ask a question for my friend Christine, and she is also a Navy veteran. She's not on tonight; they're in the chats, but I want to make sure I touch base on this. Did you ever have to do battle stations?
Oh yeah. So I was the DC man for. Again, you have different jobs in the Navy. I was a master at arms. I did 3M for the ship. And I was their SRA coordinator. I did all these jobs that were maintenance jobs because someone had to do it from your shop.
Right.
And I was the damage control petty officer for security. So I had to learn how to do the damage control stuff. But most of the time, security did not play in those games of battle stations because if something real world went, we had to go out.
Right.
So 2 of our guys who were in charge of urinalysis would hide in the urinalysis shop and play video games. And during battle stations, I'm sure she'll tell you have to wear all the kit and caboodle and have your arms all. These 2 numbskulls would answer the door also if anybody knocked during battle stations, because they would take security guys in and they would play, I think it was PlayStation 3 at the time.
Yeah, sounds about right.
They're not wearing any of their gear. One of them is sitting in shorts and flip-flops because he can't go to his berthing, so he's just hanging out in shorts and flip-flops, and I believe just a plain white shirt. And the CO knocked on the door, and he opened it. Hello? And realized his mistake. And from that day forward, security had to fully play the game because of these gentlemen's lack of. So it was always fun at that point.
Yeah, I'm sure they probably got a ribbing about it too.
Oh, yeah.
To say the least.
Yeah.
So what was your total time in?
I was in for a little over 10 years.
Okay, so you did 3 in Gitmo, and then 3 on the ship.
Yep.
Okay, so you got 6 there. So where else did you go?
Tinker. Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma.
Oh, okay. Okay. I have heard of that. It just took me a second. It's like I'm showing age here. So you say Tinker, I think toys.
I that's what I would have thought before I ever went there.
That's crazy. So, okay. And you did that. You went there. How long were you there for?
That was my last 3. I did Bahrain was a year, then some time in Cuba. I had some minor duty stations, but it all came up to about 3 years there, and then the ship, and then Tinker finishing it out.
Okay. What did you end up doing in Tinker?
Security. There's a strategic wing command is there, and you go out and do security for them. But that's not what my main focus was once I got there. I'd gone to the ship. MAs are notoriously not good at doing Navy 3M, which is maintenance and material management, keeping everything on preventative maintenance and things. So when I got to Tinker, pretty early on, I realized, oh, we don't have a 3M program here, and we're required to have one. And so I got put in charge of 3M there. And they treated me pretty well for being in charge of the 3M program. It's not a program that any MA likes. I think I'm a little bragging, but I think I'm one of the few MAs that actually got to a really high level in 3M and enjoyed it. There are several force revisions that have my names on it, or correction pages that have my names on it of, hey, he found issues and sent them back to Big Navy to fix. But it was interesting. It was a nice way to wind up my career. I started having some health issues and some physical problems. And so it was a good way to kind of finish my career out, pass on as much knowledge as I could to other people before I went and got out.
And prior to you actually getting out, did they give you, the Navy, did they give you any courses on transitioning, anything of that nature?
Yeah. There's a Navy TAPS. It's a program to transition you to civilian life. I think there's some things that can be done better with the TAPS program, but
what would that be?
So TAPS, it seems like, and this is just somebody going through it, not somebody that designed it or anything, but it seems like there's a lot of fear of military members who are getting out, kind of scaring them into staying in.
You think so? Okay.
Because I remember they're talking about a budget, and I remember sitting there, and I'm a little older than some of the guys getting out. Some of the guys did 4 years and is getting out. And I was sitting there, and one of the kids was like, they're not going to let me out. I can't figure out how to make my budget work.
The munchkins.
Oh, yeah. I can't figure out how to make my budget work so that way I come in under budget to pay all my bills. And I said, what do you mean they're not going to let you out? And, I can't figure out how to make it calculate. And if I fail this, they may not let me out of the military. And it's like, no, they're going to let you out. Your contract's up. They can't just force you. So getting them to understand, like, look, when you're looking at jobs is what to look at. And the other thing is there's a lot of, there wasn't very much on training on, hey, how do I use my GI Bill? How can I tell if there's a scam school or not? I know there are several people I know that went to universities that were total scams. And their degree isn't really worth anything. And having the ability to talk to a service member or talk to people getting out, because if you've lived in base housing or barracks your entire time in, as you're getting out, realizing, oh, I'm going to have to pay a deposit for my utilities. I'm going to have to pay a deposit for gas. Or, hey, as you're getting out and you're looking for jobs, here's how to really maximize what you've done in the military to express, because you think, okay, I was a maintenance man in the military. I was security in the military. So I got to go to be a police officer or be a mechanic, and not, oh, I was an E4 and E5. I was a leader. I can apply for leadership jobs or,
yeah. How does that translate in the civilian world.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
such a huge thing. And then not just in the civilian world, but hey, you did this, and if you are interested, you could pursue not just diplomas, you could pursue certificates, or you could pursue this or that. There's a lot of things that can be done differently that way to really effectively make a good make life easier for guys that are getting out, guys and women that are getting
Exactly. How long was that? Was that like a week-long thing?
It was a week, and the thing is, you're supposed to be able to request it twice, and depending on your station, and I've talked to several people that have gotten out, who said I requested to go through it again because I missed stuff, and their command just wouldn't let them go for a second time. And I think we have to focus on the mission in the military because that's the primary thing.
Correct.
But when somebody's within 100 days of getting out, they're no longer mission mindset. Their mindset should be their mission is transitioning back to the civilian world, because the most successful thing for the military and the most successful recruiting tool the military has is veterans who get out, or service members who get out and live successful lives.
Yeah.
Nothing will recruit better than that.
Yeah. I see both sides, right? I mean, the reason why, because as you said, mission is first priority. And then on the other side of that spectrum is that knowledge for transitioning and getting themselves prepared to be a civilian again, how to walk amongst the civilians again, and create a life for yourself as a productive member of society. And it's not all about that military mindset. We've got several people out in the chat, so I'm going to give a shout out to Jason, DJ, Ron Wayne, thank you. We've got Trophy King, and also Oscar Mike Radio, on mission always. So that would be my good friend and veteran. That is Travis. Thank you for showing up tonight. I'm curious to know, now you've been out for a while. What resources have you been able to find in your neck of the woods that you utilize?
Some of the best resources for veterans are, one, I know it's kind of shameful plug, but the VFW really is a great resource. And not the bar, not the
right.
Just
here the conversation and camaraderie of other veterans, right?
Oh yeah. And my VFW, we have some younger members. We have 7, 8 younger members who, we have more than that as members, but 7 or 8 of us have got a group chat where all of us may have different limitations because of disabilities. Some of them have PTSD, some have depression, some have physical disabilities, some have other things. And to be able to have somebody that you can reach out to at 2 o'clock in the morning and say, hey man, I'm going through it, and have someone instantly there has been absolutely phenomenal. It goes back into the military. When you're in the military, you have that. Right. I know I could.
And they're so close, right?
Oh yeah.
I mean, right there. Sometimes they're your bunk buddy or whatever you want to call them.
Oh yeah. And so that's, once you've experienced that, especially for 4 years, and that's where you're at, you've had that camaraderie. Because I constantly tell people, you'll never have as close a friend as somebody that's been in the military and gone through some really rough crap. Yeah. Those people, they may not like each other, but man, when things go down, that person will be there in a way that nobody else will be there for anybody else.
Exactly.
But then some other resources are reaching out to some kind of unlikely resources. ARP is one of the biggest friendly military people, but then also getting out there into Reddit, getting out there into podcasts like yours, or getting out there within prayer groups. There are veterans groups all over the place. And I always say that the people that can best understand a veteran is a veteran. And because we all have spouses or whoever that may have been with us while we served, but they don't understand necessarily all the crap. And your best resource will always be another veteran.
And I do have to clarify, I am not a veteran, but I do have 2 veteran military Marine sons. So, but that was the reason that this show was created.
That's
Because
expanding the voices, though. That's what I'm saying. You have a great
yes,
resource there.
yes, and it's great for veterans to be talking, telling their story so that other veterans listening can say, gosh, I've been there. I understand that. And, maybe this resource might work better for me versus this one, right? And seeing how other veterans have handled um, transitioning and mental health problems, whatever the case may be, right? And I think that's huge. Um, I want to say for anybody out there in the chats, if you have any questions for Deric, go ahead and put them out there now for me. I'm also going to go ahead. I'm going to repost that banner for the Give Butter. And that again, that is to support a fallen veteran this Christmas. And so Minutes Wisely again is raising funds to support the family of a veteran who tragically took his life. So please feel free to donate. You can click on take that link and type it in, and then it'll take you directly to that. So they're looking for a goal of $2,500. They're almost at $1,500. So, and then they'll be giving that to the family with gifts, and there are some children involved as well as the spouse. So very important there. I want to make sure to say also thank you, Deric, because I think you've got a lot of good points and some really good viewpoints when it comes to traveling outside of the country, the different types of cultures, and just being open, right? To not every place you go is going to be combative. Not every place you go is going to be where you're just stuck at base. And to say, I mean, that you really loved Guantanamo Bay, and so that to me is just amazing, and the stories that you shared. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
If you could give some words of wisdom from Deric to those who are looking to join the military, not specifically any branch, but some words of wisdom.
So one of my first things I tell anybody that's going to join, take pictures. Not just go use your iPhone, whatever. Go get a camera.
Right.
Take pictures. Share. Print those pictures out. Those pictures. There are things I saw the Great Mosque of Bahrain. I've been to. I was on the ship where the Japanese surrendered to the Australians for World War II. I had so many things I've seen and experienced that I don't have any pictures of. All that's left of them are just up here, and once that's gone, it's gone. But I wish I would have had pictures to show people. The other one is stay in contact. I made a big thing of when I first joined. I joined previously having a career. I was an industrial mechanic. So when I joined, I had this idea of got my email address I'll use till the day I die, gave that out to people and said, hey, if you ever need anything, let me know. And then I'd write people's information down. I've written letters of recommendation a decade ago, a little longer, who people now are higher up in that company that I recommend them into, and wrote a letter for them who have reached out since and said, hey, I really appreciate this. Thanks for the help. That kind of thing goes a long way, because again, if you're traveling all over, when you get out and you're filling out a resume or you're filling out an application, a lot of times there's that references. Who can you write down? Yeah. Well, they can reference their parents or they can reference family. But unless you have some way of that people can contact you, you can't help make that change for them. And it's very important. It's very important to get out there, not just for yourself, but to do that for your other people. The other one is to find a passion. So I was given a figure pretty early on in the military that if you're a veteran and you have a spouse and the veteran has to go on a deployment or has to go out on a ship or has to be away from the home, if when they get back, there's not a space that they can decompress, it's their space, because we do this to people without realizing it. If they're not there, oh, I'll put some of my stuff here and there and I'll start eating up that space. If a veteran doesn't have a space that they can feel like is theirs, or a service member can't have that space, typically that leads to divorce fairly quickly, within about 180 days.
Interesting. Didn't even think about that. That's
So
a good point.
have those conversations with spouses or with parents or with whoever, because that's easily avoidable. And the other one is have the worst thing somebody can do. And I've done this, and I'm now a very avid anti-drinker, is, yeah, you can go out and have a drink, but find a hobby that is not drinking, that is not a negative. Find a positive. It can be, I have, Stephen Cayeza was a bodybuilder. The man crocheted as his hobby.
Okay. Shout out to, and he's listening, he's watching. Shout out to my friend who is a veteran, and yes, he crochets, and it's beautiful.
And
absolutely beautiful.
It doesn't take space. It's something easy. And that's one of the things is, if you get out and you have PTSD, or if you have depression, or if you have something, if you've found a hobby, it gives you something to put into and pour into.
Yeah. Let's see. So Travis says, I did, Deric. He says, everyone laughed until we lost those that served with us.
Yeah.
Ron Wayne, he said, outstanding stream. Nice meeting you, Deric. Thank you
Nice
for
to
your
meet you.
service, brother. Got to run for his premiere. So he is a 2A podcaster. So
Okay.
Thanks for coming on. And then Travis says, I do crochet. Travis with Oscar Mike Radio. A great guy. If you haven't checked out his podcast, you should do so. It is fabulous. And his voice, I have to say, it's just melted butter. It's I don't know how else to put it. Travis is probably at home right now blushing. Yeah, but Travis does some beautiful work with crochet. He makes Afghans that are the one that he sent me a photo of. I mean, and he seemed, I don't know how tall he is, but anybody taller than 5'2" is tall. So and it was red, white, and blue and coming down. So I mean, it's just absolutely gorgeous that they raffle off. So yeah, beautiful. All right. I don't know. Do we have anybody else who wants to ask a question? Feel free. We would love to get those answered for you. And so nowadays, what is it you're doing, Deric?
So I work with the VFW. It's all volunteer time. I'm currently running for city council, and I work on legislation. And I'm going to make a shameless plug.
Go for it.
There are thousands of MIAs out there, and very little has been done. I don't know. Most people don't know that they'll still be marked as missing or unaccounted for, even if their remains have been returned to Hawaii or somewhere else. They're marked as unaccounted for until their DNA is matched.
Correct.
It doesn't work with 23andMe, MyHeritage. None of the DNA sampling kits match over to that. And the other thing is we just had two wonderful people match DNAs for 3 families that the DPA couldn't find the family members. And these people just used ancestry tools and genealogy tools and found the family and got them to submit DNA kits. So we are advocating that we change some things in the system. One, we need to create a thing that says they've been located, missing confirmation. Because the guy that we just got matched, his mother just died 2 years ago. He was setting waiting for 5 years.
Oh, wow.
She thought he was still missing in Korea. He had starved to death as a POW and he was unaccounted for. Had that been said, we've found him, but we need a confirmation match, his mother would have saw him buried.
Yes.
So that needs to change. We're also not the VFW, just me personally. I'm working with several legislators. We're fighting to change the way that the VA loan is done, because we have seen in the last couple years, banks have started telling some veterans, yes, the VA loan doesn't require 20% down, but we're going to require it from you. And
how can they do that?
Because all a VA loan is a backed loan or guaranteed loan by the government.
It's a promise.
The bank can still make the make the stipulations of what it is. So we've seen banks go up to say, we want you to have a 760 credit score with a 15% down payment. And a lot of veterans can't make that. So we're asking for Congress to step in, and we're looking at different things. I've talked to several different legislators from both parties. And in fact, I reached out to every major political candidate pushing, but some things have got to change because we're seeing a larger amount of veteran homelessness rise. And we're seeing a lot of veterans who are not homeless, but on home emergencies where they have 2-3 children and they're living in a 1-bedroom apartment because they can't afford more than that.
How receptive were the politicians to this? What was the general consensus?
I will tell you the most receptive person I have ever run into was Robert Kennedy. He had an aide call me. I had a 2-hour, 40-minute conversation with about why this is a factor, how much it would take to fix this, and how it would fix it permanently. And they listened to it. As of right now, it's being shared on social media on several different platforms. It's reached out to over 40,000 people with a 97% approval rating. So we're trying to get something to happen, and we think we'll get something done this year.
Oh, that's fabulous. I have no, truly, that is absolutely amazing. I have a friend who she's a realtor, but her specialty is the VA loan. And so obviously, that information would be great to have and pass to her. So feel free, you can email that over to me. You'll also be happy to hear that on December 29th, that is a Sunday, my guest, his name is Jim Walsh. He is an Army veteran, and he is with the, I think it's the 307th Bombardier.
Yeah.
And they're the group that, he's got all the documentation, right, that has been passed down. It's probably 50 years worth of documentation, if not more. He said,
wow.
I think he said it was like 4 crates maybe that were 6x4 or something like that, full of all this documentation about where bombers went down. And so they help to locate either by providing documentation of missing whatever that documentation is. I mean, he's got a whole presentation as well, but he'll be coming on the 29th to talk about this. But they have found, in fact, I don't know, it was within the last couple of weeks, they found one who was a bombardier and back in the 40s, I think. And they found him off somewhere in the Pacific, like 230 something miles underground, in the water. They found him, were able to not only locate him, but match DNA.
That's
and able to say that he has been accounted for and bring home.
That's amazing. We have one getting buried on December 28th. There's a lot of work going into it. And one of the things, like I said, we're looking at talking about trade deals. We have trade deals with Laos and Cambodia and Thailand. We make up, in Vietnam, we make up about 80% of their GDP.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize it was that high.
Oh, it's pretty high. But we have no requirements. They assist us in locating MIA, which is one of our largest groups of MIAs that are missing. Right. And so we're going to be working on that. And I get to use my full voice to go out and campaign and try to make something happen to bring some people home.
Well, I'm super excited to hear how things go for you politically and with the MIAs. And so you'll need to keep us posted on that. So, I'm not seeing any additional questions that might be out there, but I do again want to say thank you, Deric, for your sacrifices, your service, and for what you're continuing to do in serving our veterans today, as well as those who are lost. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
And again, everybody have a wonderful rest of your Sunday. I know it's wrapping up for most, but be sure to check me out next Sunday, 6 p.m. Central Time. I'll have another guest for you. Deric, if you want to hang tight, that would be great. So everybody, again, thank you for being here and thank you for joining in on the conversation. Y'all have a great evening.